Hey guys, Super Nintendo here, and I've been playing Metroid Samus Returns for the 3DS. This game is pretty awesome and a welcome surprise for Metroid fans who didn't think that we'd ever see a Metroid game again, much less a classic style with maps to explore. Even if this is a remake of Metroid 2 for the original Game Boy, no one saw this coming and it went from being announced at E3 2017 to be released September 2017. So you'd think everybody would be pretty stoked, but this is Nintendo, and with the giant fan base, you're always going to find a group of people to complain about something. This week's major complaint: why is Samus Returns on the 3DS when it could be on the Switch instead? Why is Nintendo wasting time putting games on the 3DS when it's a dead platform now that the Switch is a portable system? Well, there's three primary reasons why the Nintendo 3DS isn't dead yet. Number 1. Nintendo has always supported 2 or more platforms at any given time since the NES and the Game Boy. Nintendo Entertainment System came out in 1985 and the Game Boy came out in 1989. Since then, Nintendo has always had at least 2 systems, a handheld and a console. You got the NES and the Game Boy, Super Nintendo and the Game Boy, Nintendo 64 and the Game Boy Color plus the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo GameCube and Game Boy Advance SP plus the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo Wii with the Nintendo DSi and 3DS, and then the Wii U with the 3DS XL and the new 3DS and the 2DS. And so now you have the Nintendo Switch with the new 2DS XL. So you kind of get the point that Nintendo really likes to have a console and a handheld together at the same time. Now, that line of between a console and a handheld is being blurred by the Nintendo Switch. It makes sense that Nintendo would drop the 3DS line from a outsider's perspective since the two teams have actually merged internally, but it doesn't make a lot of sense from Nintendo's perspective. The Nintendo 3DS currently boasts a library of over 1,100 games if you count the downloadable titles, and even more games if you include the DS library as well, since the games are backwards compatible. Number 2, Nintendo almost always has had a legacy console on sale with the new console. I say almost always because the Wii U was promptly discontinued and actually removed from shelves to make way for the Nintendo Switch. That system, unfortunately, was just adding confusion to Nintendo's business model, and given the Nintendo Switch being a console and a handheld, it didn't really make sense to have a system with a handheld screen that wasn't portable on its shelves. But all the other times, Nintendo has supported their legacy console to the bitter end. Consoles all have a life cycle. They start out fairly expensive and they don't make the company a lot of money, but once that console has aged a couple years and there's games to be enjoyed, there will either be a price drop, bundle, or system refresh with a cheaper price tag that makes the company money back over time. The NES was still on the shelf when the Super Nintendo came out in the form of the NES 101. The Super Nintendo was still sold when Nintendo 64 was out in the form of the Super Nintendo Jr. The Nintendo 64 was sold during the GameCube, and so forth. So given that history, the Nintendo 3DS should live on for at least another 2 years, or as long as my next point still stands. Number 3, people are still buying the 3DS line of products. This is the biggest reason why Nintendo hasn't killed the 3DS outright, and that a bigger game like Metroid is on that said platform. Nintendo's handhelds have been a huge platform for them, and they've managed to triumph over seemingly more powerful systems like the Game Gear, Lynx, Turbo Express, Nomad, Neo Geo Pocket, PSP, and the Vita. As long as people keep buying 2DS and 3DS systems, I don't think you'll see Nintendo stop making them. But it's really ironic for people to tell Nintendo it's time to kill off a super successful platform with a library of thousands of games while complaining that Nintendo is doing the wrong thing by killing off the Nintendo NES Classic, which only has 30 games. They started making these again, so all is right with the world, at least for now. No one really knows the future of what the 3DS line will be, but I think that the number of 2DS variants that Nintendo is making alludes to a 2DS HD model that will come out in the near future. They'll probably drop the 2DS, 3DS naming convention and just call it the DS HD or 2DS HD. It makes sense to continue the DS model even with the Switch being a handheld because the gaming possibilities are a lot different with 2 screens. And also the clamshell design makes the DS line a lot more portable than the Switch. But maybe I'm wrong and they'll discontinue the DS line in 2019, making it an even 15 years of the DS platform. So what do you think? Do you think Nintendo is wise to keep their handheld line mixing with the Switch, which is arguably handheld as well? I'd love to read your comments down below. If you like this video, I appreciate a thumbs up, and if you're new here, I do videos like this and also review games in my backlog, and I let you pick what game I review next, so you'll want to subscribe for more. I'm Super Nintendo, and I'll see you next time.